Hello and welcome to episode 50 of the Mr. Douglas Sports Show. I am your host as always, Corey Douglas, and there is no better way to be celebrating episode 50 of this show than talking about the 2021 NBA playoffs. Of course, you've had the play-in tournament, playing out this week, which I think the NBA would have to say is a huge success based off the ratings and just based off the level of action that you've seen in a couple of games. A few of them have just been completely blowouts. And I think my overall takeaway based off the play-in results this week is that what I've been saying all along is that the 10th seed and the 7th seed did not need to be in this tournament. And I think it's playing out that way. You've seen two 10 seeds both lose, and you've seen both 7 seeds win. And now it's coming down between 8 and 9. Of course, last night you had Washington just destroy Indiana in the 8-9 matchup. And then tonight you'll have Memphis and Golden State playing again. They just played on Sunday to finish out the regular season. Now they will play a win or go home game tonight. And I am leaning towards Golden State in that game. I don't see Steph Curry and Draymond Green going home this quick. And so, yeah, I think Golden State is going to win, and then that will set up Golden State versus Utah in the first round. But before I get to my first round NBA predictions, I want to go over the finalists for each NBA award that was released on Thursday night. Starting with, of course, you got the Coach of the Year, the Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, Most Valuable, Rookie of the Year, and then the Sixth Man of the Year. So I want to get this started by going over the finalists for the Most Improved Players. And those finalists are Jeremy Grant out of the Detroit Pistons. Of course, he leaves Denver during the offseason, goes to Detroit. He wanted a situation where he could kind of be on his own and, start building his own legacy on his own team. You have Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, he took a big step up after, playing a little bit in the playoffs last season. And then Julius Randle has the Knicks back in the playoffs as the 4 seed. And in this one, I have to go with Julius Randle just because, like I said, he put the Knicks back on the map. And they actually got up to being a 4 seed when the projections before the season had them only winning like 21 or 20 or so games. So I'm giving that award to Julius Randle. Big major props to the local dude. The Coach of the Year finalist, you have Quinn Snyder for the Utah Jazz, number 1 seed in the West. Can't argue with that. Tom Thibodeau, again, the Knicks. What he did there is incredibly impressive. And then Monty Williams, what he did in Phoenix, 2nd seed in the West. Obviously, Chris Paul made a huge difference in that scenario. And in this one, I'm going with Monty Williams. To me, it came down between Monty Williams and Thibodeau, and I'm going to slightly lean towards Monty Williams just because he did it in the Western Conference. And I remember when I said that the Phoenix Suns would make the playoffs at the beginning of the season way back in December. It kind of got some backlash, and, people were like, Chris Paul's not making that big of a difference. First of all, they were wrong, and obviously Monty Williams being able to step in that situation and build off the momentum they built in the bubble by going undefeated. I got to give it to Monty Williams on that one. Sixth Man of the Year. The finalists on this one, I don't know what happened with this list. You got Jordan Clarkson, no argument there. Joe Ingles somehow made the finalist list, averaging 9 points a game. I know he shot like 47% from 3, but to me, he's not Sixth Man of the Year candidate. And then third, you got Derrick Rose. Obviously, he came on late once he was traded to the Knicks, and Thibodeau loves him, so he played a lot. So based off these finalists, you have to go with Jordan Clarkson. I personally would have liked to see Tim Hardaway Jr. get some consideration there, or even to a lesser degree, Jalen Brunson. But like I said, Jordan Clarkson definitely is going to take home this award. Rookie of the Year, you got finalist LaMelo Ball, and what he did in Charlotte led them to be able to compete for a play-in situation. They dealt with a lot of injuries. He dealt with an injury that kept him out for an extended period of time. You got Anthony Edwards, who really closed the season really strong, and I think he might have closed the gap, and if there was a gap between him and Ball to end the season. And then third, you have Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously, his season ended a few games early due to a knee injury. So on this one, I got to go with LaMelo Ball. That was my preseason pick before the season started. So I'm going to roll with it now that the season has concluded and seeing what he did this season. Most valuable player finalist, you got Steph Curry. I mean, it's hard to hate too much, but at the end of the day, this team is going to be an 8 seed. And I don't see him, over a guy like even Dame Lillard or even Luka or even Chris Paul to a certain degree. I don't agree with that one. Joel Embiid, more than deserving. Obviously, I don't think he's going to get it just because he missed an extended period of time due to his own injury. And then who I think is going to win it, Nikola Jokic out of the Denver Nuggets. Obviously, they got the 3 seed in the West thanks to some maneuvering by the Clippers trying to avoid the Lakers in the second round. But what he did and how they stayed afloat after Jamal Murray got hurt, you got to give the big fella in Denver some love, and he is going to be this season's MVP. And I don't really think the discussion is even close. Defensive Player of the Year, you got finalist Rudy Gobert. Every year he's in this discussion. Deservedly so. Draymond Green and Ben Simmons. Just for some switch up, I'm going to give this award to Ben Simmons. Like Ben Simmons, in his own words, he says that he can guard 1 through 5, and he does more defensively than Rudy Gobert does, and I agree to that. So I got to give it to Ben Simmons. So those are the NBA awards. So now let's go ahead and get into some NBA first round predictions. And I'm going to start out East. All right, so I do have somewhat of a bold prediction going into this first round. So before I make the predictions, I definitely want to get into that. So my bold prediction is that no team in the first round will be swept. I think this is going to be one of the most competitive playoffs in some time. I think the bubble was great last season, but I think this season, being back in NBA arenas, having the travel, having the home court advantage to a certain degree, I think that's going to play a huge part in how competitive this season is, or these playoffs are. So like I said, I'm going to start out East. Philadelphia, the number 1 seed in the East, is taking on the Washington Wizards. And Philly went 3-0 against Washington this season. Now, Washington is an unbelievable story just because of where they came from, having to deal with, people being out, guys being hurt. So to get to the 8 seed and finish the way they did is extremely impressive. However, that run is going to end in the first round here. I am picking Philadelphia in 5. I do think Washington will be able to steal either Game 3 or Game 4 at home, but Philly will close it out in 5 in Philadelphia. Knicks and Hawks is the 4-5 matchup in the East. I mentioned earlier the Knicks are back in the playoffs. They have home court advantage. The Hawks are back in the playoffs. Trae Young, John Collins, Clint Capella, Bogdan Bogdanovic. They have a lot of talent in Atlanta. The Knicks did sweep the Hawks in the regular season. And I think this one is going to be one of the more competitive playoff series in the first round. I am going to take the Knicks in 7 games. And I really do think this is a toss-up, but I am going to lean towards the Knicks with the home court advantage. The 3-6 matchup in the East is, it's going to be one of the best series that we see in the first round here. The Milwaukee Bucks, the 3 seed, versus the Miami Heat, the 6 seed. And the Miami Heat, they were up and down the entire season. Of course, the Miami Heat beat Milwaukee in the bubble last season in the playoffs to send them home. And the Bucks went 2-1 against the Heat this season in the regular season. I am going to pick the Bucks in 7. I do not think this will be an easy series for Milwaukee. I think Eric Spoelstra and what he does to Giannis in these type of playoff environments where he can really sit down and game plan from game to game, it really gives Giannis trouble. But I think the difference this year between this year and last year is Drew Holiday is on the Bucks. And I think his versatility on defense as well as his playmaking on offense will make the difference for the Bucks to squeak out a close series against Miami in 7 games. The final first round matchup in the Eastern Conference is the number 2 seed Brooklyn Nets versus the number 7 seed Boston Celtics. And this one is going to come down to how much firepower, or can the Boston keep up with all the firepower the Nets have. In the regular season, the Nets went 3-0 against Boston, and I think that trend continues. I have the Nets beating Boston in 5 games. I do think Jason Tatum is just good enough to squeak out 1 win. As you can see in the play-in game against Washington, he dropped 50 on them. And I think he's capable of doing that 1 game in this series. But overall, with James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, that is just too much for Boston to overcome, especially without Jaylen Brown. So give me the Nets in 5. All right, so now headed out west. I'm starting with the Utah Jazz, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They will be taking on the winner of the Memphis Grizzlies versus Golden State game on Friday night. Based off the regular season, Golden State went 2-1 against Utah, and Utah went 3-0 against Memphis. So I think if you held the Utah Jazz up to a lie detector test and asked them which team would they rather face, I think they would say Memphis pretty easily, because I don't think they would want to deal with Steph Curry in a 7-game series. So if it's Golden State, I have Utah in 6 games. And then if it's Memphis, I have Utah beating Memphis in 5 games. Just a note to keep up with, Donovan Mitchell did practice or go through some portion of practice this week, and he is expected to play in game 1. So that obviously that is a big boost for the Utah Jazz heading into these playoffs. But like I said, Utah in 6 against Golden State, and then Utah in 5 against Memphis if it comes to be the Memphis Grizzlies that advance. The second matchup I'm going to go to is the 3-6 matchup. That is the Portland Trailblazers versus Denver Nuggets. Obviously, these teams have history together. Portland beat Denver in 7 games a couple of seasons ago as Portland went on to the Western Conference Finals. This season, the Nuggets went 2-1 against Portland in the regular season. And I think this is going to be a very competitive series. And I think what the difference is going to be in this series is that Denver does not have that second proven guy to go out there and get a bucket when needed. And I think Portland will be able to game plan enough to contain Jokic just a tad bit. And I'm going to pick the upset here. I'm going to pick Portland in 7 games. I think Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, Norman Powell, Melo, Nurk getting healthy, and the way they finish out the season, I think that will be enough to catapult them to pull off this upset over the Denver Nuggets. So give me Portland in 7. All right. Then we go to the Phoenix Suns versus the Los Angeles Lakers matchup. And I think Utah and Phoenix were kind of both sweating here at the end as the Lakers found themselves in the play-in situation. I think part of Phoenix was thinking, okay, please, hold on to this Golden State, get in the 7th seed. We'd rather play you than the Lakers. Unfortunately for the Phoenix Suns, that did not happen. And during the regular season, the Phoenix Suns did defeat the Lakers 2 out of 3 times. However, this last matchup in LA without LeBron, but AD did play, I think the Lakers sent a message to Phoenix, and I think that message was heard loud and clear. But I still don't see the Phoenix Suns being able to beat LeBron in a 7-game series. So that is why I am picking the Lakers in 6 to beat the Suns. LeBron in the playoff series, having to beat him 4 times is just extremely difficult. And the further he gets removed from his ankle injury is the healthier and better he will look. And I think that will be enough for the Lakers to come away with a win in this series. All right, so the 4th and final Western Conference first round playoff series is my Dallas Mavericks taking on the Los Angeles Clippers. And obviously this is round 2. We know what happened in the bubble last season, or just a few months ago even. The Clippers beat the Mavs in 6 games. And this was a very, very highly competitive series. There was a lot of trash talk, a lot of just dirty stuff on the Clippers' part. And obviously you have game 1 where KP gets ejected. He plays games 2 and game 3, but he's hurt, so then he has to sit out games 4, 5, and 6. Luka hits the big shot in game 4 to tie the series at 2. Obviously the Clippers win the next 2 and move on to the second round. These are 2 slightly different teams heading into this playoff matchup. On the Clipper side, you have some new faces and some faces that aren't there anymore. Obviously, the people that aren't there, Montrezl Harrell is now with the Lakers. You have Lou Williams now with Atlanta. You have Serge Ibaka now with the Clippers. You have Nicholas Batum now with the Clippers. Hated Rajon Rondo is on the Clippers now after a midseason trade for Lou Williams. So there's some new faces on their end, but on our end, on the Mavs end, you have Jalen Brunson, who was hurt last year, did not make the trip to the bubble. Dwight Powell was unable to play in the bubble. Willie Cauley-Stein opted out of traveling to the bubble. Josh Richardson obviously was acquired in an offseason trade. And what this series comes down to is you know what you're going to get from Luka. You know sort of what you're going to get from KP if he's able to remain healthy. And then on the Clipper side, you know what you're going to get from Kawhi. And you want to say you're confident in what's going to happen with Paul George, but we've seen him in action in the playoffs before. So I don't know if you can really count on him. But what this series is going to come down to is what do the Josh Richardsons, the Tim Hardaway Jr.'s, the Jalen Brunsons, the Cauley-Steins, all these combination of role players that the Mavs have versus the combination of role players that the Clippers have. I think when you're just looking at it on paper, you would say the Clippers have more talent than the Mavs. But if the Mavs are able to shoot the ball well, obviously that creates a whole different dynamic because, like I said, you know what Luka's going to bring. The Mavs did go 2-1 against the Clippers in the regular season, including a 51-point beatdown early in the season in a game that Kawhi Leonard did not play in. With all of that being said, and as much hope that I want to have for the Mavericks to win this series, I don't see it happening. I think if Tim Hardaway Jr. can continue the way he played towards the end of the season, I think that can extend the season or the series by a couple of games. So my final prediction for this series is going to be the Clippers in 6. Like I said, I just think on paper the Clippers are just much deeper than the Mavericks, and I think they're able to adjust more than the Mavs will be able to adjust just based off a sheer talent standpoint. But hey, we'll see what happens. Stranger things have happened. Obviously, I think the Mavs having the advantage as far as having the more home fans in the building. They're expected to have 12,000 or 12 to 15,000. The Clippers are at 10% capacity, which puts them at around 7 to 9,000. I think that could play a major role in this series. But when it's all said and done, I don't see the Mavericks winning this series. And, we'll just have to follow throughout the series and see what happens. That is going to conclude episode 50 of the Mr. Douglas Sports Show. I will be back next week. Until then, salute.